Hi, I'm Ari, I'm the Oak Witch, and in today's video I'm going to be going over some easy protection magic spells. So today I'm going to be giving you a spells video. Don't usually do them too often, but you guys really liked my spell video where I went through 5 really easy spells to do as a beginner, and I thought I would kind of do the same thing here but also focus it more on protection magic. Protection magic is something which is quite important as a beginner when you're getting into how to protect yourself, when you're beginning to work with energy or work with spirits. Protecting yourself from certain things is always helpful. The goal of these spells I'm going to be giving you today, they are designed to be easy and accessible. I find a lot of the time when people write in beginner spell books or, spell encyclopedias, the spells tend to be a little bit inaccessible. They're not always the cheapest, they're not always most accessible in terms of how many ingredients there are in spells that you need to do, or even in their methods tend to be a little bit convoluted. Today I want to give you some from my own personal grimoire that I really like doing, and they're not too complicated. So the spells are designed with the intention to protect yourself in some way, be it protecting your physical body, yourself, protecting your space, your home, warding off any harm set in your way, or returning whatever has been inflicted upon you back to where it came from. Of course, I'm an English folk witch, I practice English folk magic, so that means the spells I'm going to be giving you today are kind of flavoured with that, with English folk magic. But that doesn't mean that if you don't practice English folk magic, or if you're not English, you can't practice it. Of course, English folk magic is open to anybody, so you're more than welcome to practice these spells, even if you're not part of this path, so that's completely fine. So yeah, one more quick thing before I dive into the spells is that before each spell, usually what is done, you ground and center yourself to kind of align your inner energy and your inner spirit together and connect you to environment. This makes you kind of more stable and more focused and ready to perform spell work. And cleansing yourself, cleansing your space or the objects that you may or may not use in your spells is usually done before you perform a spell. I don't go through those processes in each spell that I'm about to go through. I don't really go through them. So I think repeating that 4 times is a bit much. So yes, I don't really go through any of those preparations when I'm about to go through these spells. So just thought I'd mention that. Obviously that's something that you want to consider when you are actually performing those spells. Do that necessary preparation beforehand if you wish, and what I'm about to go through in the terms of the spells are literally just the method themselves and what you need. So let's start off with a defense candle spell. So this spell is designed to kind of be more flexible with your intention in terms of protecting yourself and defending yourself. This can be yourself or just the area that you're in, but this is using a candle. So this is more for magic, which you kind of need protection very quickly. In terms of that elemental association, fire magic is for quick magic. You want this protection quickly, so this candle spell is kind of designed for that scenario. But what you'll need is a single black candle. So it doesn't really matter the size. It can be a really big candle, it could be a really small one, it could be like a birthday candle if you have those in black, but black is for protection. You need a candle carver, so you can get a fancy candle carver tool, or you can just do what I'm doing and use a pen. You'll also need a fireproof candle plate and a chalk pen or something which can be easily wiped off, like a felt pen or something. Or if you don't have this, a piece of paper and a pen or pencil will work fine. You'll need a candle holder, so this can be really anything that you have which is fireproof, and then you also need a lighter. Some optional ingredients here if you have the means to. If you don't, it's completely fine, you don't need these, but you could also get a protection anointing oil for the candle and some herbs that are associated with protection or defense for the candle as well, but these are not necessary. So first let's establish the goal of this spell. So as I said before, the goal of the spell is kind of flexible to what you kind of need in terms of protection or defense, but I'll use an example in what I'm showing you in this example spell. So my intention for this is I am protected from any disruptive energy. So that is the intention that I'm going to be carrying with me whilst I perform this spell. It's going to be what's on my mind, what I'm focused on when I'm performing each step of the spell. So how to perform the spell. So get your candle plate or your pen and paper if that's your substitute, and place it on your altar, your table, wherever you're working. You need to draw the satyr square on the candle plate or on the piece of paper. The satyr square is a really old symbol for protection and for various other magical uses. I spoke about it in one of my videos, so you can check that out in the card that is listed here. Here's me just preparing the candle and kind of waking it up, so to speak, for the magical working. It's not something you have to do, but as an animist I tend to like to do this. So the next thing you want to do is carve your candle with any protective symbols or words. So this can be simply just I am protected with perhaps like a protective rune or protective sigil that you have created. Anything that really just reminds you of protection, or any protective symbols you can place on it. You can put a simple pentagram, really is up to you. But here in this example, I've literally just put a tear rune with I am protected. Step 3 here is optional, where you would knot your candle with the protective oil, the protective herbs around it, and then you would place it in your candle holder. So once you placed it in your candle holder and that is on your candle plate with the satyr square, rub your hands together, build up that energy, and whilst you're doing that, visualize a protective shield around you. In my example intention, of course, I want to protect myself from any disruptive energy, so I'm visualizing that shield around me, safe, secure, so nothing can really interfere with what I'm doing. And you continue to rub your hands together and you can feel the energy building up in your body, in your hands, and when you feel satisfied, when you feel sort of that energy there, you want to push it into the candle. After this, here is where you just light the candle with your lighter and then you let it burn all the way down. And that's it, and that's the spell. It really doesn't have to be anything other than that. What I tend to do in my animistic practice is when I light the flame, I talk to the spirit of the flame. So I say something along the lines of, Spirit of the flame, work with me here, grant me protection from any disruptive energy. Something just really simple, but it's like talking to what you're working with to build that connection, so it will further help your practice and further help that magic actually work. As an animist, I see spirit or spirit essence in all things, so working with these objects as a part of the magic helps me, and it's just a part of my worldview. So if that works for you, then that's great. That's an option you can do for your practice, but that's what I tend to do. So with this spell, there isn't necessarily anything you really need to expect or wait to see what happens. Some spells you're kind of waiting to see if it actually works. This one is a little bit more subtle. It really does depend on your situation why you need protection, especially if you're needing it in a pinch. If you need it to be protected from something in particular, then you might be searching out for that protection specific to your situation. But if you're just kind of doing a general protection, then sometimes the effects are quite subtle and you don't always notice it because you've been protected. So if something doesn't get slammed your way and you're being protected, then it's usually a sure sign that it's working. If it's not working, then you have a bunch of stuff that's disrupting your space and your person. So that's when you kind of can intuitively know that maybe you need to up your protection magic and try different things. So on to the next spell, which is a protect from physical harm Poppet. I really like Poppets because there's that lovely interplay with sympathetic and contagion magic, and I often find that they're quite powerful. Really like Poppets, they're used a lot in English folk magic, so I want to give you my Poppet that I tend to use in my practice. What you'll need is 2 pieces of black cloth, black of course for protection, and in terms of cloth here, if you don't have any scraps of cloth or anything that you can really use or fabric, honestly what I tend to do is use old socks. It might sound a bit weird, but obviously the socks are something which I've worn, so it's a part of me. It has like my soul imprint, so to speak, and it's something which I was gonna throw out because maybe the sock is worn, but I can repurpose into a magical practice, so it's kind of sustainable in that sense as well. So that's what I tend to use. Obviously I clean it before I use it. So you also need scissors and a chalk pen or something to draw on the piece of fabric so you can see what you need to cut out. You will need a personal tag lock, so this can include hair. You could also do nail clippings, whatever you decide to use, that's up to you. I'm not going to judge you, but it needs to be something from your person. So I tend to use hair that I've taken from my hairbrush. You also need cloves, as in the herb, and a needle and thread. Obviously in the spell you're using scissors and a needle, so obligatory safety warning, just be careful when you're using sharp objects, especially if you're younger. Also, the spell tends to take a long time depending on your skills of sewing. I'm rubbish, so I take ages doing the spell, but with practice it gets a lot easier. This spell, of course, the intention is to protect you from physical harm. I like using a puppet for this intention because you are creating a puppet of yourself. So you're able to directly enchant your body with protection from physical harm. So I think this spell is really great for if you're traveling, if you're on the go a lot. A puppet is great because it's something which you can carry with you. This puppet I'm going to show you is something which is quite small, so you can fit it easily in your pocket or in your bag. Something which, you know, doesn't really need to be seen and can just be tucked away somewhere, and you can get that protection with you as it is literally on your person as you go. So I really like this spell. So how to perform. First, you need to place your two pieces of cloth on top of each other and draw an outline of a human figure. So in this example, I'm using a sock. So I cut the sock basically in half and I place it flat on each other so the cloth doesn't like have any bumps, so it is literally just flat. And in terms of the human figure, obviously you can draw it so that it closely resembles you, your body, or you can just do a standard human shape. I've done a standard human shape just for the sake of this example. But you want to make it big enough so that you can actually stuff your tag lock or your clothes inside, but you don't want it too big that it obviously won't be able to fit in a pocket, or depending on how you're going to imagine yourself using it, you want it to be discreet enough. So once you have done your shape, you want to get your needle and kind of place it inside the two cloths as I'm shown here, so it kind of like keeps the two pieces of cloth together. So this is because when you start cutting the two pieces of cloth, they don't really move too much and it just makes it easier. So you want to start cutting out your human shape. Once you've done that and you're satisfied with how it looks, this is when you want to start using your needle and thread and to sew together the two shapes. It really doesn't need to be perfect, but obviously you want to make sure that the thread you're sewing doesn't leave too large gaps, because obviously when you start stuffing your herb and like your tag lock inside, you don't want it to fall out of the poppet. So you want to make sure that it's quite tightly sewn. I've made this mistake before, but you know, if you sew and you find gaps, you can always just sew again in the same space. So it doesn't really need to be perfect on your first go round, but before you get to the end, leave a little bit of a gap so you can obviously stuff your tag lock and your clothes inside. You want to leave a little bit so you can stuff the stuff inside, and then after you've done that you can then sew it back up. This is where you take your tag lock, so I'm taking my hair here and I'm putting it inside the poppet. Now take the clothes and I, as an animist, speak to the spirit of the clothes, ask them to protect me from physical harm, and I place it inside the poppet. Once it's kind of padded out, I sew up the hole and you take the poppet in your hands. As I take the poppet in my hands, I visualize myself protected. Perhaps I visualize myself with skin of diamonds, that nothing can hurt me, nothing can penetrate that barrier, and I am protected from anything that could possibly harm me. Perhaps you want to visualize yourself in a castle with fortified walls and a moat around you, so no one can attack you, no one can get to you and cross your defenses. So in whatever way kind of works for you, visualize that. By the way, for people who can't visualize, you don't need to use imagery necessarily. You can repeat chants or incantations. This can be really good for charging as well. So if visualizing isn't your thing, you can repeat over and over, I am defended, nothing can hurt me. I am defended, nothing can hurt me. You can really say what you want in terms of the intention of being protected from physical harm, and repeat that over and over as like a mantra, something that you're chanting over and over again, and really feel that energy rising and with the chant, and obviously pushing that into the poppet, which is in your hands. So once you've done this and you sort of feel satisfied, what I tend to do is I take the poppet in my hands and I breathe life into the poppet. This is the breath of life using that air magic, and you are feeding your spirit into the poppet, and the poppet is awakening, and this is the spell pretty much done. Because of this intention, poppet to protect you from physical harm, this is something you want to keep on your person, you want to keep with you as you go, and this can be where the magic actually works. Again, like I said before, it is pretty subtle sometimes. Really does depend on your lifestyle, what you're doing, your situations that you're being protected from, so I can't really give you a clear indication of how the spell will work. It really just depends, because a lot of things can happen. Now this next spell is a warding off evil bottle, and I love the spell because it's pretty easy to make. So what you'll need is a glass jar or a glass bottle, a glass container, anything that is glass and has a lid. The ingredients I tend to use in my wards is black salt that I've made myself, which is literally just salt and ashes from incense that I've burned. I add black pepper and cloves. I usually add mugwort, but I've been running low and I don't really want to waste it too much, so I'm not adding it this time. But the black pepper, black salt and cloves works perfectly fine. You'll need a pen and paper, and you'll need a wipeable pen that you can put on glass but also rubs off. The optional ingredients here is a black candle and a lighter, and this will be for essentially sealing the spell on top, but I'll get into that a bit later. Before performing the spell, we will establish our goal, and this goal is to ward off any harmful energy sent my way directly. So this is warding off any intentional harm that I may get. So this is why doing a bottle is really good, because you can place it around your house, for example, or where you work, or where you just spend long periods of time. You want to place this bottle in these places where, you know, any harm may actually be sent your way. So how you perform the spell is you want to create a warding off harmful energy sigil. So you can of course make a sigil for this. If you have one already, you can use that. You can also use the one which I'm doing now. Now this is a adaptation of a Chiro symbol that I spoke about in my seals and symbol video. With my adaptation, I've taken a line from Psalm 68, which usually says, "May God rise, may his enemies be scattered, may his foes flee before him." And I've taken the sort of second part of that and put, "Let my enemies be scattered." So I've kind of taken it from the psalm and kind of put that around the Chiro symbol, and this is what I'm going to be using for my warding symbol on my bottle. But you don't have to use this if you don't want to. What you can do is just literally create a protection symbol. If you just want to use like a pentagram, as pentagrams are good as a protection symbol, use what you want, but I think creating a sigil for the specific intention of warding off harmful energy is best here, because you get that specific intention, and I've created this Chiro symbol with a specific intention to do so. So when you've done that on your piece of paper, you then want to get the bottle, and you want to take the black salt, the cloves, the black pepper, and you want to layer these ingredients on top of each other in the bottle. So as an animist myself, I tend to talk to each ingredient, petition what magic I want to be performed, and then add it in the bottle. So after you've done this, then close the bottle, and then you want to draw your warding sigil or your symbol, whatever you've chosen, onto the bottle. Like with the prior spells, you want to charge the spell. So again, you can do this in any way which you prefer, but what I tend to do is rubbing my hands together, feeling that energy rise, and then visualizing myself being protected, bouncing off any harm sent my way. I play a lot of video games, so I tend to sort of, like you're parrying an attack, blocking it, and then pushing the person away. You know, I tend to incorporate a lot of that imagery in my head because it helps me with that intention. So visualize whatever works for you in terms of blocking off any attacks, and once you feel that energy rising, you then push it into the bottle. What you can also do is grab a black candle, you can kind of melt it and stick it on top of the bottle and let the candle burn, kind of sealing the spell with the black candle for protection. You don't have to do that last bit. A lot of people with spell jars tend to drip wax onto their spell bottles to make them look pretty. I don't really personally care to do that, but if you like doing that, that's completely fine. And then what you want to do with the spells, you want to place it in a liminal space hidden away in your room. Be this by a window, by a door, by your front door or back door, or under your bed, or by your desk, somewhere where you are spending a lot of time and you want to hide it away somewhere. And that is pretty much it. There you go. Again, in terms of expectations for what the spell may look like when it's worked, it's hard to really say because again, you're warding off harm. If you feel protected, then it's working. It's hard to really see harm sent your way and actually seeing it being blocked off. It's something which I guess you'll know if you haven't really come into any trouble recently, so you know. The last spell I want to talk about is probably my favourite, and it is a return to sender mirror spell. So with a return to sender, this is usually done in the case where you already feel inflicted by whatever's happened to you. And there's lots of different ways to detect whether or not you think you might be afflicted with something. It's hard to describe because usually this is something which you assess quite intuitively. And giving advice like this can be kind of dangerous sometimes because a lot of the symptoms you talk about tend to also be mental health symptoms or just general mundane symptoms that you don't want to fearmonger or scare people into thinking that they're cursed all the time. Because usually when you're cursed or when you're hexed or when someone sent something away, it's not as common as people tend to think it is, but it's not like people don't hex or curse or send the evil eye. It does happen. Some people go through like a curse assessment checklist. I'm not going to do that, at least not in today's video. This is just simply a spell for if you feel like you've been afflicted with something and doing the spell anyway, what can it really hurt? You know, if you genuinely feel like you've been afflicted with something, then doing the spell can only help. The only hurt is maybe you wasting ingredients. So yeah, what you'll need is a black or white candle and a lighter. I like black for protection, but of course you can use white in terms of like resetting. So it's really up to you. White is good as an all-purpose candle anyway. You'll want a medium-sized mirror that you can sort of fit on your surface where you're working flat that won't really move around too much, so you want it like fixed. You'll need a candle holder and a marker. Like I said before, a marker that is wipeable, that won't be permanently on your mirror when you write on it, and scissors or a knife. So the intention here we need to establish is returning any harm you have been afflicted with back to the sender. So there's so many different ways you can phrase this. Depends on how you want to send it back. Some people send things back 3 times. Let's just say the intention for this spell is I return any harm sent my way back to where it came from. It could be something as simple as that. So how you perform the spell. You want to grab your mirror, place it on your table where you're working, and you want to draw the abracadabra symbol going down. So I'll have a picture of it here. And this symbol's been used a lot in English folk magic in terms of sympathetic magic. So seeing something decreasing and having the infliction that's been put upon you decreasing as well. So this is really great for return to sender. So you want to draw that on the mirror going downwards. Here with this abracadabra decreasing sympathetic magic, we also have the mirror, which is obviously a symbol of reflection, reflecting that evil. So yeah, after you've done this, wait for it to dry a little bit, place your candle holder in the middle of the symbol where you've drawn on the mirror, and then you grab your candle. So here you grab the candle and you want to rub it all on your body. Where you feel inflicted, I usually just do like on my head, on my body, really roughly, and visualize it kind of drawing in, grabbing in all of that energy, all of that harm, and visualize that it's all going into the candle. Here is where you want to place the candle in the candle holder and just light it. Leave it lit for like a few seconds, a few minutes, depending on the size of your candle. Let it burn just a little bit, but not all the way down. When it's burnt just a little bit, snuff the candle. Make sure there's not any hot wax poured on the top of the candle. Make sure that's all dry and it's cold. And then you want to grab your scissors and you want to cut off the tip of the candle. Here, flip the candle and you want to grab your scissors or your sharp object and you want to carve a new tip into the candle at the bottom. So this is a tip I actually got from Ella Harrison's Book of Spells. I thought I would shout out and give credit where it's due because I saw her do this in this book and I actually thought it was such a cool idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. I thought it was so neat. I briefly spoke about this book on my Patreon. I do really like it, but if you want to hear my thoughts in a little bit more depth, feel free to support me there. So when you've made this new tip, put the candle back in the candle holder and you want to light it and let it burn and repeat the following. I return any harm sent my way back to the sender. You don't have to use this chant or incantation. You can use something from folklore. For example, in English folk magic, there's lots of psalms that are used for protection. Here in Jen McGarry's Charm of Salsa, she says that to defend against enemies and return curses, Psalms 25, 37, 44, 129 or 140, or Psalm 25. Or you can just come up with your own incantation. Literally just, I return any harm sent my way back to the sender is fine. You can make something a bit more fancy, and depending on your intention, if you want to send it back times 3, you could say, I return any harm sent my way back to its sender times 3. And yeah, that's the spell done. If you know who's sent you the harm, then you can test whether it worked by seeing if they've been inflicted by anything that they've sent to you. So it's up to you. You can intuitively work out whether or not it's worked, or you could just rest in the notion that it has. And yeah, those are 4 really easy protection magic spells. What do you think? Do any catch your eye? Are you gonna try out any? Let me know down below. I chose the use of cloves and black pepper because those 2 herbs are something which can be found in any supermarket or grocery store. Black salt is something which is quite easy to make, as you can literally just get salt and put any ashes from any incense or anything that you burn. If you don't have any ashes to make black salt, you could just use salt. That's okay too. So yeah, I wanted to make these accessible but also fun. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you want to support me further, please have a look at my Patreon because it really helps me out. Just £1 a month can really help me, so I really appreciate it. And thank you for watching and supporting me here on my channel. I think we're nearly at 10,000 subscribers, which a year ago I was at 1,000. So thank you so much for being with me and commenting and liking my videos and just being really lovely. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.